Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, whoever you are, wherever you are, however you identify as, welcome to the newest episode of Days with Davo. I am Davo, and these are your days. Unfortunately, these days are kind of crazy, but nonetheless, they're still your days. First, let's get into the very first sponsor for Days with Davo, brought to you by Rev Gum. Actually, no, I'm kidding. I don't have any sponsors. But if you're interested, you can hit me up. I could even throw in my Venmo if you want, and you want to be producer of the show. We could start to get things ready. But I was in Walmart one day with my girls, and I noticed this thing called Rev Gum. Never heard of it. I was like, it sounds pretty silly, so I'm going to try it. So, not to say that me and Rev Gum are not talking and negotiating on a contract, but until then, I'm going to give it a shot, see what it's like. It supposedly it's performance energy, and it equals one single shot of espresso. So regardless, even if I'm not getting any money from RevGum, you may see me a little wired as this progresses, or it could do absolutely nothing and it could be total shit. So, but we're going to go on this journey together and we're going to find out. So here goes nothing. Tastes okay. So that's a start, right? All right. I got to plug a little merch before we get going. I want, you really can't see it because of my laptop, but see the shirt? Days with Davo, made by my wife, who is the sole proprietor of the Moonlit Forest. You can get it on Amazon, and it's pretty fantastic. It fits great. I feel great. You guys might want one. Okay, Rev Gum's getting a little terrible, but we're going to see if it's going to jazz me up a little bit, so we're going to keep going. Before we get going, let's light a candle. Let's get a little sexy in here. But I know what you're saying. It's already pretty sexy in here, but you can always get sexier. I don't care what people say, where you're like, oh, you've reached the pinnacle of your sexiness. Mm-mm. We're getting there. So, let's light a candle. Ooh. We got a little sexier. Speaking of getting sexier, you always think, I've reached it. I'm as sexy as I'm going to get. Then you have your Days with Davo shirt on and you're walking around. You're feeling pretty good, looking pretty good. And all of a sudden you get caught out in the rain. Just a little bit. Not a whole lot where you're drenched, but just a little bit. That raises your sex appeal up 10%. So now you're 10% sexier. Feeling good. Case in point, look at any John Cusack movie. That guy gets caught in the rain all the time. They love it. And oh wow, Rev Gum's getting really gross. So, with that being said, my single might be my favorite movie of all time, John Cusack, High Fidelity. I feel like those three main characters in that movie shaped the person that I am today. If you ever seen it, you might know. Check it out. It's worth checking into. All right, a couple things that I want to hit real quick. Remember, they said that the Epstein files are coming, the JFK files are coming, MLK files are coming, all other weird, crazy stuff that you wanted to get into. Have you seen them yet? Still waiting. Do I think we're actually going to get any substance? No. Because, everyone does talk about it. They're going to release this file, that file. Never happens. I think it's a lot of lip service just to keep you distracted from what may really be going on. But I'm hopeful. Surprise me. And with that saying, as far as being hopeful, as far as any president that ever comes in, and this is since I remember, I've always kind of had a little hope for them and hope that they're going to succeed. Because analogy I like to use is, I don't want to get on the plane and hope for the pilot to crash. I just don't. I don't think any of you do either. But it kind of seems like all the shouting and this, left and right, who's better, and that's a lot of it too. I don't know. That's just the way I feel. I'm not going to get too political today. All right. Let's go. A couple weird stories that I kind of wanted to look in real quick. Bear with me as I scroll up. All right. This one caught my eye and I found it kind of cool. Thomas Carter, New Jersey director of the Transportation Security Administration, has seen some things. We have seen travelers try to conceal knives and other weapons in their person, in their shoes, in their luggage. However, I believe this is the first time we've ever come across someone who was concealing a live animal down in the front of his pants. Can we guess what live animal that was? Oh, wait a minute. Get your guesses in. Carter said the incident in early March at Newark Liberty International Airport, more specifically the passenger from East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, had a turtle in his pants. A spectacular as that would have been, the turtle wasn't a snapper, but a 5-inch long red-eared slider. An alarm was triggered when TSA agent patted down the passenger and determined he was hiding something in the area of his groin. The turtle was unharmed, authorities said. No word if he got the turtle back. We don't want to do that one. That's not cool. Boy rats on mom for being bad. Count on a cheeky 40-year-old from Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, never living this down. He called the cops and reported his mom for being bad, and she needed to go to jail. I wonder what. In a statement on Facebook last week, the village police department said authorities weren't able to get details before the boy ended the call. As in customary in 9/11 hangups, officers were dispatched to the home to investigate. Mom's crime was a big one in the eyes of the preschooler with a sweet tooth. She ate her son's ice cream. Police showed up the next day with ice cream, and that set off a whole big thing on Facebook about the kid being the real criminal. Speculations that next thing you know, he'll be calling 911 just so cops will show up with ice cream, and comments by a couple of people that if they'd pulled that, they would be eating oatmeal for the rest of their lives. Well, it's like, dude, don't take my ice cream. I get him. I get exactly where he's coming from. Poor dude. All right, so just a couple weird stories. I found them entertaining. And when I did start this podcast, I said weird news. That was part of it. That was part of the title. So there's a little weird news for you. Okay, coming up on future podcast, I'm going to have my very first interview. I kind of wanted to get a few under my belt before I started interviewing people and kind of going back and forth. I think it's going to open some things up. Because I'm going to ask some great questions. We're going to get into conspiracies. We're going to talk music, because that's another thing of this podcast that I wanted to do. I don't know. I just like music. Who doesn't? If you don't like music, you're weird. But we're going to get into some things, and we're just going to talk about, stuff that's interesting. And I hope you find it interesting too. So coming up, next podcast, I think it'll be the next podcast. We're going to do interview style, and it's going to be cool. So that's about it. So stay tuned. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes, why you're here. And this one I always found entertaining. Not entertaining. I've always found it interesting. I always found it conspiratorial because I didn't believe the official narrative. Me as a person, I've never really believed the official narrative. I'm always kind of in the back, don't think so. But this one, especially, it's not even really conspiracy. It goes along with forensics. You can look at the forensics of this and be like, that shit didn't happen. So we're going to find out what it is and how it plays out. This is the death of Marilyn Monroe. And I'm going to give a little warning before we go into it because it's good. Those of you that have trigger warnings with the word suicide probably shouldn't partake in this. I I don't believe it was a suicide, but there's still the word being used. So viewer discretion is advised. Could be complex in nature. So I just want to throw that out. So let's get into it. Marilyn Monroe, and this is just stuff that I got up a Wikipedia. It's just stuff you can look up yourself, but I thought we could kind of give like a background about her in case you're young and you have not even really know who Marilyn Monroe is. I think everyone does, even though it was in the 50s and 60s and uh, controversial. But I think everyone knows who she is. But if you don't, here you go. Marilyn Monroe, born Norma Jean Mortensen, June 1st, 1926. Spent most of her life in and out of foster care and orphanages. She married James Doherty at the age of 16. Ew. Known for playing blonde bombshell characters in movies, maybe the most popular sex symbol of that time, as well as ushering in the sexual revolution. Top billed actress, grossed over 200 million, equivalent in 2024 would be like 2 billion. Worked in a factory during World War II when she met photographer for the first motion picture and began a pinup model career. Scandal hit when it became known that she posed nude before fame. In turn, it made her movies more desirable. So I guess there is no real bad press, is there? No. Rev Gum, no, thank you. These pictures turned to grace the cover of the first Playboy. I think without her actually knowing, they were just obtained by Hugh Hefner and became the very first Playboy. Notable marriages include Joe DiMaggio and playwright Arthur Miller. Both ended in divorce. Well, these are the facts, and let's get into the weirdness. Okay. So, the narrative. Norma Jean, before she was Marilyn Monroe, her mom was paranoid schizophrenic, ultimately couldn't take care of Marilyn. Bounced around in foster care. And when I always knew that was the idea that she was like in orphanages and foster care, and I thought like she just lived with people she didn't know, but like a lot of the people she lived with were like friends of the family that like took her in and raised her as her own. But she did bounce from like different family member to different family member, friends of this family, friends of that family. I mean, still not a great upbringing, but I guess it's better than like what they tell you, that she was just like an orphan till age 19 and then she became a pinup model. But during that time, sexually abused might be where some of her need to be loved and not really like a lot of her self-worth came from. Not a great upbringing. Ends up working in a factory where she's discovered and then becomes a model. From that, she becomes an actress. A lot of this information can be found in the book Dead Wrong by Richard Belzer. You know that guy. He was kind of like the creepy looking dude with the glasses from Law and Order SVU, but apparently very big on Marilyn Monroe. So the photographer that discovers her in the factory, which I kind of find weird too. Like, I worked in plenty of factories. I was never discovered by any photographer. Well, maybe that was the thing in the 50s and 60s. I don't know. His name was David Conover. In 1944 is when he finds her. He works for the U.S. Army Forces Motion Picture Unit. Weird. And during this time, she signs a contract with 20th Century Fox. Couple of marriages connected to high-profile men. JFK, RFK, Frank Sinatra, Sam Giancana, Mob. Frank Sinatra too. Dude, that dude was like heavily in the mob. You think it was just all blue eyes crooning? Mm-mm. That dude could have you whacked if he needed to. Johnny Roselli, Bob, as well as a Soviet spy named Frederick Field. Weird. Um, Important to know that her phone was tapped by the U.S. intelligence and the mafia, like simultaneously at the same time. She had a sleeping pill addiction, and that whole "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" thing, May 19th, 1962. It's important. We're going to dive into that a little later, and you're going to find out how important it was. She ends up dying August 4th, 1962. All right, let's get into that fateful night. Cause of death: acute barbiturate poisoning, said to have ingested between 80 and 90 pills. The pills, chlorohydrate and Nembutal. Her psychiatrist was weaning her off the sleeping pills. She had called a friend earlier in that day to see if she could get some pills because she didn't have any. She was having trouble sleeping. When she talked to her friend, there was no sign of any like slurring speech or anything. It didn't seem like she had already ingested like a certain amount of pills. She was like, she seemed happy. She seemed good. She seemed like in a good place. She just couldn't sleep. Now, Eunice Murray was the name of the housekeeper. She was said to have woke up around 3 a.m. and saw a light from under the door. So she tried to get into the door, couldn't get in. Immediately, who do you think she calls? Probably the cops, right? Nope, calls her psychiatrist. Psychiatrist comes to the house, tries to get in the door, can't get in the door. Goes back outside, breaks into the window to get inside. Now, remember this, that he broke into the window because it's going to come back. It's going to be a little weird. Then they decide to call her primary care physician. Primary care physician comes over. After that, they end up calling her agent. So then the agent comes over. So now there's 3 people in the house with Eunice, the housekeeper. So time goes by, hours go by, another hour, and then finally they end up calling the cops. First cop arrived at the scene, sees no sign of regurgitation. Now, I don't know anyone that's ever taken too many pills. Maybe you have, but I have not. And I guess when like you do try to OD from pills, there's like your body can't take as much as you're like getting down. So there's like regurgitation. First cop sees no sign of regurgitation. The sergeant that was in charge of the investigation, his name is Sergeant Clemens, finds her in the soldier's position, face down, arms to the side, and legs spread. During the investigation, all members who were there immediately said they haven't touched her. Doctors never provided CPR, even like the psychiatrist. So you mean to tell me when you get there and your patient is obviously like non-responsive and you don't touch her for hours, like immediately when you come in, you don't touch her at all, you don't provide CPR. And I get it, you're a psychiatrist, you work with like brain and feelings and stuff like that, but you are still a medical professional. Like, you know, CPR, you definitely do. And even if you didn't, try like pumping on the chest a little bit to like try. But there was no sign of that. All he said was, I never touched her. No. During the investigation, all members who were there immediately said they didn't touch it. We got that. So Sergeant Clemens noticed bruises on her arms and her legs and around her rectum. All signs point to being held down. While the investigation is happening, Sergeant Clemens asked the psychiatrist about the broken window. So the thing about the broken window is if you're from the outside and you have to break it, you're going to see shards of glass on the inside of the house, right? Sergeant Clemens noticed there are no shards on the inside of the house, only on the outside. So that's weird, right? So if you ask me, some weirdness went on. I'm not going to speculate what did go on, but whoever was in there decided to make it look like someone had to try to break in to get to her, and they just broke it from the inside, so the shards are on the outside. Very sloppy, but I think back in the 60s, you really didn't have to you didn't have to cover all your bases because I don't know. I just don't think we didn't have the forensics. We didn't have DNA analysis. We didn't have this. We didn't have that. We've come a long way technologically, but yeah, weird. So, meanwhile, while this is all happening, did you forget about the housekeeper? Well, she's busy doing laundry. So your employer is obviously dead. You've known she's been dead for 3 hours. And what are you doing? You're just doing your job, just going back to doing laundry. If it was me, I'd be opening up the want ads or hopping on Indeed.com because guess what? You need a new job. But she didn't. She did laundry. Or was she trying to wash something that could have potential be evidence? I don't know. We're gonna have to find out, won't we? All right. Sergeant Clemens notices a few things. There is no glass of water for Marilyn Monroe to take 80 to 90 pills. So the narrative is she just took them dry. Have you ever tried to take one pill dry? It's not easy. It's like tough. But apparently she took 80 to 90. So I don't believe that. There was a crumpled up piece of paper with the number 2, the Oval Office, in the bed. Now, after the medical examiners came in and, they take pictures for, their files and whatnot, the glass of water got put on by the bed so they could, make it look like she had a glass of water. And they sprawled a bunch of pills around. And they got rid of that crumpled up piece of paper. Weird, right? But it was the number to the Oval Office. Also, it's important to know that the guest house where Eunice, the housekeeper, was staying had been broken into that night. And I mean, maybe, sure, that's not weird, but it was broken into and some things were taken. Maybe some things that were Eunice's. Maybe she had a gold necklace, diamonds, or something like that. Nope. What did they take? Every single one of Marilyn Monroe's journals. Apparently, she was like a avid journaler. And she had like journals on top of journals. Like every day, she journaled every single day, and all of them gone. Every single one. And also, it's important to know that they didn't find a suicide note next to Marilyn Monroe. When they found her, she was obviously naked. She had like a sheet over her. She didn't have any makeup on, and she was clutching the phone. That was how the psychiatrist said that he found her. But if you kind of go into who Marilyn Monroe was, I don't think if she was going to commit suicide and she knew people were going to be seeing her, I personally think she probably would have done herself up a little bit. She was very vain that way. And as an avid journaler, I don't know, she was a writer. You might write a suicide note, give someone some inkling why you did it. No, nothing. Okay. At some point, I think it's after the body was moved, J. Edgar Hoover from the FBI, director of the FBI, shows up to just make sure everything's are going according to plan. Maybe the government's plan. But I find it very weird that the director of the FBI would go to Marilyn Monroe's house in the middle of the night just to make sure the investigation was going properly. Few things about JFK, kids, that you might not know. J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover was a known cross-dresser. He was the director of the FBI from 1924 to 1972. He was the director for a long, long time. And he was also tied to Roy Cohn. Roy Cohn was a absolute terrible person. One of the guys that founded some of this sexual blackmail stuff that like, your P. Diddy or Epstein, these people that some of the stuff that they were doing, this been going on for a very, 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 very long time. And him and Roy Cohn used to have these parties, and they used to sexual blackmail very high profile people. So, that's a little background on him. All right. Finally, Marilyn's body gets moved on to Dr. Noguchi, who will be doing the autopsy and the medical examination. Unfortunately, Dr. Noguchi will have to wait. Usually, I guess from Marilyn's house to the morgue, it would have taken 45 minutes. It took 4 hours. Weird, right? Yeah, I guess. And traffic, probably. Dr. Noguchi, when he finally gets a body, notices that the body had been tampered with, especially her intestines and her stomach. He ruled it barbiturate overdose. And then he throws in probable suicide. So it was never like really like labeled Marilyn Monroe committed suicide. But the narrative is that in the past months, she was in like the last movie she worked in, she was hard to deal with. She was hard to work with. She was moody and this and that. I personally think that she was kind of like done going off script, if you will. And so after everything's said and done, they bury Marilyn Monroe 4 days later on August 8th. She dies on the 4th. They bury her on the 8th. Pretty quickly, I think. I'm sure there's been times where people get buried very quickly. Like, let's see, or cremated. So let's see. One that comes to mind recently, the guy that supposedly tried to kill Trump, that, what's his name? Thomas Crooks, I believe, that weird looking boy that was in the BlackRock commercial. He got cremated like days later. Very weird. Now, probable killers for Marilyn Monroe, because I don't think she committed suicide. I think she was killed. If I really have to tell you what I think happened, I think Marilyn knew too much. She was in with the JFK boys. She was in with the mob. She, for some reason, was hanging around with a Soviet spy. I think she knew too much, and I think some people knew it, and they wanted to make sure she didn't talk anymore, like mob style. So I believe she was held down and sent, the bruises on the arms and the legs. And instead of taking the pills orally, I think they were inserted rectally. And it is kind of a thing. I mean, if you watch one of the Jackass movies, like they showed like the Jackass boys like using I think it was Steve-O. They put a tube and a funnel in his ass and they poured alcohol down it to like get him drunk. It's a thing. I mean, it happens. Word to the wise, kids, don't do it. It's not something you should do, but I'm just saying it is a thing that happens. So probable killers, the Kennedys, the mafia, or straight up just the government in general. Now, why do I think maybe the Kennedys had something to do with it? And I'm going to tell you. May 19th, 1962, JFK's birthday. Remember we talked about it a little bit? The happy birthday, Mr. President. Madison Square Garden. Huge birthday celebration. She was asked not to go. She was actually uninvited. They said, do not show up here. And then Marilyn said, I'm Marilyn Monroe. I'm going to do whatever I want. So good for you. I mean, good for you. I would probably do the same. It's like, hey, I'm Marilyn. I'm going to do whatever I want. All right. So next. Okay. Yeah. So JFK's birthday. I never really knew this about JFK's birthday, but that whole happy birthday, Mr. President, I thought it was just a thing. I just thought it was like a recording for like a movie or something like that. I had no idea that it was done at his birthday. And I had no idea that his birthday was at Madison Square Garden in front of his wife. So that's crazy. She shows up when she's not supposed to, and in front of his wife does a happy birthday, Mr. President, and a gown that's supposed to almost kind of look see-through, kind of look like she was naked. And that's shady. After all that goes down, there's a big party, his birthday celebration. She's seen dancing with Bobby and JFK throughout the night. And then that night, I guess all the reporters that were at his birthday, they had them all holed up in a hotel in New York City. And the CIA went to each of their rooms and they took any evidence that they had of Marilyn Monroe seen with any of the Kennedy boys. And they confiscated it and they said, if you report about this, it's going to be bad. Don't do it. So they didn't. Maybe it was the mafia. The mafia also had her phone tapped. She might have some information, and because that's what the mafia does. They, if you know something, they just kill you. We're done. The government. This is where I kind of think maybe the government might have had something to do with it, because she had clearance to Lookout Mountain. And what is Lookout Mountain? If you watched Days with Davo, Davo gets weird about Laurel Canyon. It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify. It's on Rumble. You can find it. It's easy to find. Go back into that one. I talk about Lookout Mountain, where it was right in Laurel Canyon. And there were certain people that had military level clearance into this facility. And she happened to be one of them. Jimmy Stewart was another one. Frank Sinatra is another one. Like a bunch of different people had clearance. They could go in and out whenever they wanted, and they could shoot any sort of piece of propaganda that they wanted. And also, like, the photographer that discovered her back in that factory in 1944, he worked for the Army. And so, I don't know. I just think she knew, like, certain aspects of the military, what they were up to, and they probably didn't want it. I also think that they were part, like, the guy that discovered her, I think he is specifically worked for the government, and they wanted to use her as, like, a sex kitten. And for those who don't know, the phrase a sex kitten is a woman who exhibits sexually provocative lifestyles or an abundant sexual aggression. But maybe. All right, let's wrap this up. I feel that she was killed. I also feel that she was going off script, taking out in a humiliation ritual. And those who don't know what that is, I guess we could look at different things. If you looked at that podcast that Cat Williams did with Shannon Sharp, where he talked about, like, different black actors that wear dresses, and, like, it's kind of like off the mark for them to dress in dresses, yada yada yada. That's a humiliation ritual. So her being photographed while she was dead, no makeup on, nude, sprawled out. I think that's part of that ritual. It's what they do when people tend to, don't play ball, basically. Personally, I think she knew too much, and she just had to go. So I also have this other theory, who actually might have had something to do with taking her out. A lot of people are always like, oh, it's the Kennedys. It's the government. It's this person, the mafia, I think maybe Jackie O had a lot to do with it, because I don't think she loved sitting next to her husband as, this bombshell of an actress sings Happy Birthday, Mr. President, very provocatively. I honestly think that that's where it all comes from. And then if you go into Jackie O's kind of like her family tree and stuff like that, it gets very weird. I think there was some sort of connection where maybe she had like an uncle that could maybe, like, get things done if she needed to. So I don't know. Maybe it's Jackie O. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. So possibly. All right. So that's about it. I always thought this was weird. I didn't love the official narrative. And I still don't. It's considered a probable suicide, but to me, it kind of feels like a homicide. So that's about it. So I want you to enjoy your day. Take care. And follow me on socials. Days with Davo all over the place. Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Rumble. It's all Days with Davo. It's all over the place. And check out the Amazon shop. We got baseball tees. Get one for yourself. Let me know. All right. So it's been real. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. Love you all. Peace.